Most people waste their entire life avoiding rejection, but rejection is the very thing that makes you unstoppable. Give me 58 seconds, and I'll delete your fear of rejection forever. Rejection isn't personal, it's feedback. Most people carry the belief that when someone rejects them, it's a statement about their worth, their ability, or who they are as a person. That belief is what creates fear. The truth is, rejection rarely has anything to do with you as an individual. It has everything to do with timing, fit, priorities, or the other person's perspective. If you start to look at rejection through that lens, the whole story changes. Think about it this way. If you pitch an idea to an investor and they say no, it doesn't automatically mean the idea is bad or that you're incapable. It might mean they've already invested in something similar, or their fund isn't set up for your stage, or they simply don't understand the market you're in. That rejection, in reality, is data. It's information you can use to refine your pitch, to choose better, aligned investors, or to reposition the opportunity. Nothing in that scenario reflects your value as a human being. When we internalize rejection, we rob ourselves of progress. Imagine a salesperson who quits after hearing 10 no's in a row because they think those no's mean they're not good enough. In reality, every no is just pointing them closer to the right yes. That's why the most successful people you know don't avoid rejection, they embrace it. They treat it like a feedback loop. They collect data from every rejection. What didn't connect? What needs to be improved? What can I change about my delivery or my offer? That feedback, when used correctly, accelerates growth faster than any yes ever could. A yes feels good, but it rarely teaches you. The no's, however, are full of lessons if you're willing to listen. The danger comes from attaching yourself worth to outcomes you don't control. You can't control if someone invests, buys, approves, or accepts. What you can control is how you show up, how prepared you are, how well you communicate, and how consistently you keep pushing. When you stop making rejection personal, you give yourself freedom. Freedom to act without fear. Freedom to experiment. Freedom to keep moving until you find the path that works. This is the mindset shift that separates those who stall from those who scale. Think about entrepreneurs who have built world-class companies. Almost every single one has a story about being turned down dozens, if not hundreds, of times. They didn't quit after hearing no. They understood those no's weren't about them personally. They were signals that helped them adjust, refine, and ultimately succeed. The ability to detach your ego from rejection is like building a superpower. Suddenly, feedback becomes fuel. Criticism becomes guidance. No's become navigation. And once you see rejection as data instead of a verdict, fear loses its grip. You become unstoppable because you realize the game is not about avoiding rejection, but about collecting enough of it to find the right direction. Rejection isn't a wall, it's a compass. Every time you hear no, it's pointing you somewhere you can improve, somewhere you can adapt, or somewhere you can double down. The more you step into that perspective, the less rejection feels like pain, and the more it feels like progress. Detach self-worth from outcomes. The biggest trap most people fall into is believing their value is determined by how others respond to them. If they close the deal, they feel like winners. If they get rejected, they feel like failures. Living this way creates an emotional roller coaster that keeps you stuck. Your sense of worth should never be tied to something outside your control. Yet so many people hand over that power to strangers, clients, or external circumstances. When you anchor your identity in outcomes, you become reactive. Every yes inflates your ego. every no destroys your confidence. This constant swing leaves you exhausted and terrified to take risks because the fear of failure threatens who you believe you are. But here's the truth: outcomes are temporary, your worth is permanent. Whether someone buys from you, invests in you, hires you, or accepts you is a reflection of their decision, not your identity. You are not defined by results. You are defined by your effort, your character, and your persistence. Think about elite athletes. They don't measure their value as people based on whether they win every game. They measure progress by how they train, how they improve, and how consistently they show up. The wins come and go, but their worth remains intact. You must take the same approach in your own life and business. Detach who you are from what happens. Imagine two entrepreneurs pitching investors. One ties his entire self, worth to the answer. When he hears no, he feels crushed, questions his ability, and loses momentum. The other knows rejection is part of the game. He takes the no as data, not identity. He keeps his confidence intact and moves to the next meeting. Over time, who do you think succeeds? It's not the one who attaches worth to outcomes, it's the one who treats outcomes as feedback while protecting his sense of value. The moment you separate self-worth from results, you gain freedom, freedom to experiment, freedom to fail, freedom to keep trying without the emotional baggage of feeling unworthy. That freedom unlocks creativity and resilience. You stop chasing validation and start chasing growth. Instead of asking, "What does this outcome say about me?" you ask, "What can I learn from this outcome?" That subtle shift changes everything. Now every failure becomes a lesson, every success becomes momentum, and neither defines you, they simply refine you. People who rise fast are the ones who play without fear of losing. They know their identity isn't on the line. That's why they're willing to take bold swings others avoid. They pitch big clients, they launch new ideas, they take the stage, they put themselves out there. Their worth isn't determined by applause, contracts, or metric. It's internal. And because they're not held hostage by outcomes, they create more outcomes. Ironically, the less you tie your worth to results, the more results you achieve. Detaching self-worth doesn't mean you don't care about winning. It means you care deeply, but you don't let winning or losing decide who you are. Your value is already set. Outcomes are just results of action, not reflections of identity. When you start living this way, rejection stops feeling like a personal attack. It becomes just another step forward. Success stops feeling like luck or validation. It becomes a byproduct of consistency. You build an unshakable mindset where no amount of rejection can break you, and no amount of praise can blind you. That's the level where fear disappears, because you finally understand you were never defined by outcomes, you were defined by your decision to keep going regardless of them. The fastest learners seek rejection. Most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid hearing the word no. They think rejection is a signal to stop, that it means they are not good enough or that their idea is flawed. But the people who grow the fastest, who make the biggest leaps, deliberately put themselves in situations where rejection is possible, even likely, because they understand rejection is the fastest way to get clarity. Every rejection contains a lesson. It shows you where the gaps are, what's missing, or what needs to be communicated differently. While most people hide from that discomfort, the ones who accelerate seek it out. They chase feedback because they know the quicker they collect it, the quicker they improve. Think about someone launching a new product. If they wait until it's perfect, avoiding the possibility of rejection, they'll waste months building something no one wants. But if they push it into the market quickly, knowing some people will reject it, they get data immediately. That rejection tells them what features matter, what messaging resonates, what doesn't connect. Instead of being crushed, they use it to iterate. This process of rapid testing and fast rejection makes them unbeatable in the long run. They get to the winning version 10 times faster than the person who hides behind preparation, waiting for perfection. Rejection is like a mirror. It reflects exactly where you need to adjust. If someone says no to your pitch, it might mean the value wasn't clear enough. If they turn down your offer, it could mean your target audience isn't aligned. If you ask for something and don't get it, it might signal you need to refine your approach. Every no is a piece of data pointing to the exact place you need to grow. The people who embrace this reality don't just tolerate rejection, they actively pursue it. They know the more no's they hear, the faster they'll unlock the yes that matters. Avoiding rejection slows learning to a crawl. You spend your time in safe zones where nothing is tested, nothing is challenged, and nothing forces you to stretch. You might feel comfortable, but comfort doesn't create breakthroughs. Rejection, on the other hand, is the environment where breakthroughs are born. It forces creativity, persistence, and resilience. Each rejection tests how badly you want it and whether you're willing to adapt. That process is what turns amateurs into professionals and dreamers into doers. The irony is that rejection, when pursued, loses its sting. The first time you're told no, it feels sharp and heavy. But when you collect dozens, even hundreds of no's, you stop personalizing them. They become statistics, markers on the path. You start to expect them and even appreciate them because each one sharpens your skills. The fastest learners don't just tolerate this. They build systems around it. They measure how many pitches, offers, or asks they make not because they want more yeses immediately, but because they know the more rejections they collect, the more refined their process becomes. Imagine if you flipped your perspective and saw rejection as a target instead of a threat. Instead of fearing no, you'd go after it intentionally. Every conversation, every opportunity, every risk would feel lighter because the outcome wouldn't be tied to your identity. It would simply be data you're collecting. This is how people scale skills, businesses, and confidence quickly. They turn rejection into a strategy. They know rejection is not the end of the road. It's the shortcut to mastery. The people who get rejected the most are often the ones who learn the fastest, adapt the quickest, and ultimately win the biggest. Reframe rejection as redirection. Every time you hear the word no, your instinct is to treat it as a dead end, as if the path you were on has collapsed. But if you shift your perspective, rejection isn't a wall, it's a signpost. It's pointing you toward a better route, one that you might not have considered if everything had gone smoothly. The truth is, life and business rarely unfold in straight lines. Success almost never comes from the first attempt. It comes from being pushed, redirected, and forced to try again in a new way. That's why rejection is so powerful. It doesn't stop you, it guides you. It shows you where not to go so you can discover where you truly should. Think about a job interview where you don't get the role. At first, it feels like loss, like a door slammed shut. But months later, you land a position that suits you far better, a company where you grow faster, with opportunities that align with your strengths. That initial rejection wasn't punishment, it was protection, steering you toward the right fit. The same happens in business. A client you desperately wanted says no, and you're frustrated. Yet because of that no, you free up capacity to take on a client who ends up being 10 times more valuable. In hindsight, the rejection wasn't an ending. It was redirection towards something greater. Rejection is a filter. It weeds out the wrong opportunities so you can spot the right ones. The problem is most people stop at the no. They see it as failure and shut down. They don't stick around long enough to see where it was pointing them. If you learn to stay open after rejection, to look for the direction it's nudging you, you realize it was never about keeping you out. It was about moving you forward. Every no pushes you closer to the yes that matters. This shift in perspective changes how you approach risk. Instead of fearing rejection, you welcome it. You know that even if you don't get what you want, you'll gain clarity. If a partnership falls through, maybe it wasn't aligned with your long-term vision. If your idea is dismissed, maybe it needs refining to truly make an impact. If a relationship ends, maybe it was creating space for the right one to begin. In each case, the rejection was redirecting you towards something better suited to your growth. What makes rejection feel so heavy is the belief that it's permanent. But the truth is rejection is temporary, and often it's the very thing that reroutes you toward permanent breakthroughs. When you reframe it as redirection, you start to move with it instead of against it. You stop fighting reality and start trusting that every closed door is pushing you toward the right open one. The energy you waste in resistance can now be invested in exploration, in adjusting, in moving forward with confidence. This is how the most resilient people operate. They don't see rejection as loss. They see it as guidance. They collect no's with curiosity instead of shame. They ask, "What is this trying to teach me? Where is this trying to take me?" That question unlocks perspective. Suddenly, every rejection feels lighter because it's not the end. It's just another step in a bigger story. Reframe rejection as redirection, and instead of being crushed by the doors that close, you'll be energized by the doors you're now free to find. Courage compounds. The first time you face rejection, it feels like stepping into a storm without shelter. Your heart races, your hands sweat, and you question whether you should even be there. But the second time you face it, something feels different. It's still uncomfortable, but it's not unbearable. The third time, you feel more prepared. The 10th time, it barely rattles you. What changed? You didn't eliminate fear completely. You built courage, and just like interest in a bank account, it compounds with every act of bravery. Each time you step into discomfort, you're making a deposit into your courage account, and those deposits grow into something powerful over time. Courage isn't built in grand moments. It's built in small, consistent decisions. Saying yes to a meeting you're scared of, raising your hand in the room when your instinct is to stay silent, asking for the deal even though you fear rejection. Every one of these moments strengthens you. The more you do it, the less fear controls you. Courage becomes a habit, and like all habits, it compounds into something far greater than the sum of its parts. You start with tiny acts of bravery, but those stack until one day you're doing things that once felt impossible. Most people never experience this because they retreat at the first sign of fear. They avoid situations where courage could be built, so their muscle of bravery stays weak. But those who lean into fear, who repeatedly put themselves in uncomfortable positions, develop a resilience that separates them from everyone else. They don't just get braver, they get faster at bouncing back, quicker at making decisions, and stronger in their ability to handle pressure. That's the compounding effect. Each rep of courage doesn't just prepare you for the same challenge again. It prepares you for bigger ones. Think about someone who starts public speaking. The first time, they're terrified, their voice shakes, their hands tremble. But they push through. The second time, they remember they survived the first, so it's slightly easier. By the 10th time, they're confident. By the 100th, they're commanding stages with thousands of people. That's not a natural, born gift. It's the compounded effect of courage. The same applies to sales, leadership, relationships, or any area of life where rejection exists. The more often you put yourself in the arena, the stronger you get, and the stronger you get, the bigger arenas you're able to step into. Courage also compounds because it changes your self-image. Each time you prove to yourself that you can face fear, you build a new identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who avoids risk and start seeing yourself as someone who takes it on. That shift creates momentum. It's not just about one act of bravery. It's about stacking those acts until your default setting is courage. At that point, opportunities open that were once invisible, simply because you've trained yourself to act where others hesitate. Over time, compounding courage doesn't just change what you do. It changes who you are. Fear becomes background noise instead of the main voice in your head. Challenges that used to paralyze you now feel like growth opportunities. People around you start to notice, because courage is contagious. Your actions give others permission to be brave, and that ripple effect amplifies even further. The compound effect doesn't just elevate your own life, it influences everyone connected to you. The most successful people you admire aren't fearless. They just made enough deposits into their courage account that fear no longer dictates their decisions. They faced rejection again and again until courage became second nature. That's why they move so decisively, why they seem unstoppable. They've experienced the compounding effect firsthand. Courage compounds, and once you start stacking it, there's no limit to how powerful it becomes. Winners collect rejections like reps at the gym. Every rejection is a weight you lift, a repetition that builds strength you can't get any other way. At first, it feels heavy, almost unbearable. You approach someone with your idea, your offer, or your dream, and they dismiss it. That sting feels like failure, but it's not. It's training. Just like the gym, the more reps you do, the stronger you become. Winners understand this. They don't shy away from rejection because they know each no is just another set, another chance to grow the muscle of resilience, persistence, and clarity. Think of the gym. If you only lifted weights that were comfortable, you'd never grow stronger. Muscles expand through tension and resistance. Rejection works the same way. If you only put yourself in situations where yes was guaranteed, you'd never stretch beyond your comfort zone. It's the resistance of rejection that builds the mental toughness winners rely on. Every no is like an extra plate added to the barbell. At first, it feels like a struggle, but over time, what once crushed you becomes easy, and you're able to take on challenges that would have broken you in the past. The people who win big know the game is about volume. Just like an athlete doesn't get stronger from one workout, you don't get resilient from one rejection. It's the consistency of showing up, facing the no's, and treating them as practice that builds unstoppable momentum. That's why top entrepreneurs, leaders, and creators aren't afraid to rack up hundreds of rejections. They see it as part of the process, as necessary reps in the gym of growth. They measure progress not by how many yeses they get early on, but by how many no's they can endure without losing momentum. Every rejection also sharpens skill. Each time you hear no, you have an opportunity to adjust your form, refine your pitch, improve your approach. Just like lifting weights with proper technique makes you stronger faster, using rejection as feedback accelerates your growth. Winners know that rejection isn't just about building toughness. It's also about building precision. They analyze each rep, each no, to find what can be improved, and with every adjustment they get sharper. Over time, the combination of strength and skill creates mastery. What separates winners from everyone else is that they don't see rejection as evidence of failure. They see it as proof of effort. Every no means they were in the arena, taking swings, putting in reps. They know that the people avoiding rejection are sitting on the sidelines, untested, untrained, and ultimately unprepared for real success. Just like you can't fake strength without lifting, you can't fake resilience without rejection. Winners embrace it because they know there's no shortcut. The more rejections you collect, the more confident you become. You realize rejection doesn't break you, it builds you. That realization makes you fearless. You stop worrying about the outcome and start focusing on the process, because you know the process itself guarantees growth. Each rep compounds, each no brings you closer to yes, and the yes that comes after hundreds of no's is the one that matters most, because by the time you earn it, you're strong enough to handle it. Rejection isn't punishment, it's practice. Winners don't run from it, they seek it, they stack it, they embrace it. Just like a gym session leaves your muscles stronger, a day full of no's leaves your character tougher, your skills sharper, and your belief in yourself unshakable. Collect enough of those reps, and eventually rejection no longer scares you. It becomes fuel. It becomes part of your identity. You become the kind of person who not only survives rejection, but thrives on it. Winners collect rejections like reps at the gym because they know those reps are the foundation of every breakthrough, every achievement, and every success story worth telling. Rejection isn't the enemy, it's the training ground. Every no you face is feedback, every setback is redirection, every moment of doubt is an opportunity to build courage. Winners don't run from rejection, they collect it, they learn from it, they let it shape them into something unstoppable. If you can detach your worth from outcomes and treat every no like a rep at the gym, you'll realize fear was never the obstacle, it was the teacher. And once fear loses its grip, rejection can no longer control you. That's when you step into your next level. That's when you become unstoppable.